just going to be an ad hoc gaming stream. I don't know how many people will be watching it, but if this is not like my YouTube channel, if you are coming here straight from the YouTube channel and you've not seen me on Twitch before, it's a lot less structured, there's a lot more things can go wrong, it's usually a lot more embarrassing for me. I usually put this disclaimer at the start just because people have, it's indicated in the past they expect this to be a bit like the YouTube videos, and it's not at all. So, with that out the way, my plan tonight is to do a little bit of coding, basically from scratch using the Pixel game engine. Well, scratch using the Pixel game engine. I'll let you debate the philosophy behind that. And I'm just going to stop the Twitch playback because I don't want that to happen in the background. And my stream stats look healthy and good, so that's a good start. Hopefully all of the vocals are okay. Oh, Gorbit has joined the chat. Hey, Gorbit. And you can see on the screen here a little promo for the Jam, which is happening on the 16th of November at 8 o'clock GMT. That's my term. So, let's get started. So I've not really got a plan. All I've got here is the skeleton code, and I'm going to try and implement something similar to the game Gauntlet. I was driving my car this morning, and I thought it would be really interesting dynamic to experiment with using W, A, S and D keys to move a character around a map, but using the mouse cursor to shoot a gun in a particular direction. So that's really the mechanic I want to play with tonight, and we'll see how far we get. So basically I have here the demo code that comes with the Pixel game engine. If you don't believe me, I'm going to run it, and there we go. You can see demo code. Very nice. I'm just going to, yes, we dropped a few frames whilst that was running, so I'm not going to run that one too often. Yeah, a bit like a twin shooter on the PC, twin stick shooter on the PC. Hey Fish, you're in here as well. Cool, cool. Yes, I learnt my lesson there. Don't run the Pixel game engine demo or it kills your Twitch stream. That's not good, is it? Right. So let's just get stuck in. So the first thing I'll probably want to do is I want to draw something very simple. I'm going to draw a crosshair wherever the mouse cursor is on the screen, just to make the mouse a little bit more visible. So let's grab the mouse coordinates and we'll grab them as integers. Now it's important to grab them at the start because the mouse fundamentally to the operating system is an event-based thing. And what I noticed, different to the console game engine, because the Pixel game engine actually uses Windows to do the windowing, for example, it uses mouse events, whereas the console does something a little bit different. And I noticed during one debugging session that asking the using this function here, get mouse X and get mouse Y, the values were changing during on-user updates. So now I've got into the habit of caching these if I'm going to use them at the start of the loop. That way, at least they're consistent for the loop. And we'll draw some stuff. Now, I'm going to try and reuse as much code as I can from previous examples. And also, is there any music playing in the background? There should be some music playing in the background. Why is that stopped? Let's get some music on the go. There we are. Star Tropics. Much better. If the music's too loud, do let me know. Shout out. And I'll sort that out for you. It's a bit difficult with the NES one. Hey Alexander. Just in case, I'll turn it down a tad. I'm looking at the meters in OBS and my voice is about twice what the background music is, speaking normally. So we'll see how that goes. Go back to Twitch chat so I can see what's going on. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is clear the screen to black because that's what we do. Now later on I will probably change that to drawing some sort of background image. I kind of like the idea that the character isn't just restricted to the screen. It's a much bigger map. But that will probably be the next thing that we implement. I just wanted to see what the basic dynamics of running and shooting felt like and see if they would even work for a game. So, we'll clear the screen, and wherever the mouse cursor is, we're going to draw a crosshair. This is Star Tropics, this music. Important T. Right, so we've got the mouse coordinates. I'm going to draw a circle. Simple circle. Draw a circle. I have no sort of numbers or anything in my head, so I don't know what the radius should be for a crosshair, but I do know that we're going to draw it wherever the mouse is on the screen. I also thought it might be interesting to change this a little bit later on. If I enjoy what it feels like, I'm going to maybe try and do some of the tricks that, what was that game called? Hotline Miami. Was that what it was called? That they use, such as rotating the screen around and blurring effects and all sorts of things. So that might be a bit of fun as well. It's my intention to play with this algorithm and then maybe turn it into a proper video later on. So I've got a draw circle and I'm going to draw a particular radius. What radius should I draw? Let's say 10 pixels. I don't know if that's going to be too big or too small. And crosshairs are typically white, so we'll stick with white for now. So let's just really stupidly simple program so far to make sure everything kind of works. Right, so yes, you can see the mouse cursor still. I could probably find some WinAppy hack to get rid of that, but I'm not too fussed. But it looks a little bit like the crosshair. In fact, you can see this. Interestingly, the cursor updates far faster than the where the circle's drawing. That's quite curious. Interesting. But I think we also need to add in a plus symbol. I think it might be a little bit too big. So I'm going to change that maybe to 7. Is 7 a good number? I never know with circles whether 7's a good number or not. And we'll draw some lines as well. Now, thanks to somebody on the GitHub who issued a... Oh, here's me using my GitHub language. I don't know. They issued something that said, your code's a bit rubbish, try this instead. And I kind of agreed with it, but I did change it. They did some experiments, which I always encourage, people actually doing experiments and seeing what the data was like, about drawing a selection of different lines. And it was much faster to identify whether a line was horizontal or vertical, and draw it differently to how you would draw a line if it was diagonal. Who have we got? Sinkless, grow up. Okay, thanks. And Raging Rabbit, hi, how you doing? So, that's really bothered me, that grow up. I don't know, what have I done? What's particularly immature of me today? So, we'll draw a line from N mouse X, because that's where it's going to be in our X axis, but we need to, hang on, I need to think about this. We're going to draw the vertical line first. That's going to be N mouse Y minus. Now if the radius is 7, we want the crosshair to extend it a bit, so let's choose 10 for that. Might not be enough. And we want to draw it to N mouse Y plus 10. That seems to make some sort of sense. So we'll call those as white pixels 2. There we go. And we'll do something similar for the x-axis on the crosshair, which is just the same, but we don't need the y-axis changes. I'm getting through the tea today. I think I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold. Let's just see how that looks. Does it look anything remotely like a crosshair? It does! Excellent. So, the plan is to use W, A, S and D to control something, and they're always going to face wherever the mouse is pointing. I just like the idea of using both hands to control a character. Now, that might not be an especially novel thing, but it was during the Game Decider. I think we had a game that kind of played that way, and I thought, oh, that'd be an interesting dynamic to try. If the music is a bit too loud, do let me know. Some of these songs, the volume is a little inconsistent on. So I might just pull that down a little bit more there. I know if they're loud, if I can hear them, because I've barely got it on any volume at all. Right, so, good. We've got a crosshair. Now we just need our agent in the middle. Let's have a look at that. How are we going to do it? Well, first of all, I guess we need some variables that represent our agent, where they exist in space. Now, I like to work with floating point variables for most of my game variables, simply because it gives you some scope later on to start doing some interesting tricks with floating point to integer conversions. So, let's see. We'll have F, player X. I'll initialize these. I'll just keep them. Initialize them to 0, but we'll probably stick the player in the middle of the screen to start with. Player X and player Y. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we'll initialize those properly here. Screen width divided by 2. At the moment, the world is just going to be the size of the screen, but we might want to change that later on. This is what I like about coding, is you can just sort of organically grow a program in an unconstrained way. That's how I often find you write the best programs. Maybe not the best code, but certainly the most original ideas. Javid already getting his OLC jam entry ready. And then trying to use the Discord emoji in Twitch. I don't think I'm allowed to enter my own jam, am I? I know what the theme is. You're all taking notes, right? Hadn't thought of it like that. Right, so I've chosen a player position and I want to move the player around on the screen. So let's just get the most basic dynamics out of the way here. So if get key, which is a function to interrogate which key is currently being manipulated by the user, and it's a little bit different from the console game engine. You have to specify the key directly, but if they're pressing W, then I want the player to move upwards. Now universally in a game, upwards is towards 0. Top left is 0, 0. So player Y minus, oh hang on, this is, what am I doing here? Come on David, slow down. If that's held down, then we want to do these sort of interesting things. So F player Y minus equals, don't know what the speed is going to be, but I've got a feeling I want to tweak it and I don't want to change it in a million places, so I'm going to put in a speed variable. Let's change that to 20. Yes, by process of elimination, by Friday the 16th I could have programmed all possible genres. Hopefully, you know, maybe this is the stream where Twitch will offer me some sort of affiliation, because it keeps complaining I'm not streaming enough. So I thought, well, why not have a nice little stream to test this idea out tonight? And I've been streaming games a lot recently, very graciously, because people have been treating me to those games. I do actually appreciate that a lot. Right, so F speed times, and we're going to do that as an integral of elapsed time, which is necessary because the frame rate's going to change. I'm just going to repeat what I said at the start of the video, although I've not got a huge number of viewers here tonight, but just in case you've come over from the YouTube and you're not that familiar with how I do the Twitch streams, they're not like the videos. So that's how we've got key W held down. So what's opposite of W? That's a strange question. It's S, of course, and we'll put that there, and then we want the same for A and D. A, of course, being left, and D being right. Come here, there's the cursor. There we go. So then we should draw the player. Now, I think just whilst I'm getting a feel for things, I'm just going to draw the player as a circle, but I also very quickly want to change it to a sprite, since we've got proper sprite handling capabilities now. The crosshair is always going to be drawn on top of stuff going on, so we'll draw the crosshair last. Let's draw the player. And we'll just have a fill circle, just for now, to recognise what the player, or where the player is. F player X, F player Y. The player should be probably about the same size as the crosshair, really. That maybe makes sense. I don't know. And we'll choose Cyan. I've not seen Cyan for a while on the Discord. Does anybody know if he's okay? Yes, typos are a fact of life, particularly for me, because I never learned to type properly. And do you know the worst thing is, I have to look at the keyboard when I'm typing. I can't not look at the keyboard. And I've got a big microphone right in the way, so that doesn't help with the typos. Right, so we're going to draw the player, and we've got a crosshair separately. Right, so there's the crosshair, and there's the player. But the player moves far too slow. This game, they're meant to be frantic, aren't they? Knowing that, we probably want it 10 times faster? I don't know, is this going to be well too quick now? Uncontrollably quick? I quite like the fact that it's chaotically quick. I think that's going to be necessary for the type of game that I'm envisaging. Okay. Right. Let's just have a feel now for some bullets, maybe? What should we have? Individual clicks or hold down clicks? So I keep going quiet because I'm looking at the various chats that I have to keep open these days. It's surprising the manner in which people try to communicate with me whilst I'm live streaming. Right, so yes, I think, well, right now perhaps we'll have a primary weapon which is only fired once on click. I don't know, is clicking loads a good thing? Or is hold down click and that's the direction it fires in? Maybe that's a bit too easy though, she's going to sort of spam bullets all over the place. Hold down, clicking over and over is tiring. I think I agree there. Who have we got there? Oh, well done, Twitch. You don't have to have it in light mode anymore. You can now right-click and choose readable colours. Why? I mean, why is that even an option? So that's CR Nick. Yes, Nick. I think I agree with you entirely. But I guess it depends on the type of weapon, right? So if you've got a machine gun, you don't want to be sort of clicking every single time. Anyway, worry about those sort of things later. Let's just get some basic ideas out the way first. So probably want some bullets. So let's throw in a simple bullet. S bullet. We've done bullets before quite a few times. So I'm going to store an X, Y. I call them PX. So for me it's position X and PY. And I also like to store the velocity for both. Oh, I need a struct up there, don't I? And in some way I also, and we'll probably do this later, I like to choose, sort of record who owns the bullet. But how am I going to do bullets? Should I do them like that or another way? I think it doesn't matter actually, I can actually keep the bullets just as bespoke objects. Yeah, why is invalid type for a bit field? Huh? Ah. Good old Visual Studio. That was a nice helpful error, wasn't it? Right. So if we've got bullets, then we probably want some mechanism to store bullets. I quite like lists, so I'm going to have a list. A list of S bullets. List bullets. There we go. I have to include list up here now. And here we go. Everybody's going to complain. But I'm going to do that. List bullets. Good. So, how do we work out when the mouse button is held down? I guess now we've also got to think, what's the fire rate of the weapon, right? So, if we just assume it fires a single bullet at the moment... Okay, let's do it that way. So, if get mouse 0, which is the left mouse button, is... Shall we fire on mouse going down or mouse going up? We'll do it, you know what, we'll go with what Nick is suggesting here. We'll do it on, you hold it down and it will fire at a particular rate. We may as well not just, do everything super simply. So if we've got a bullet, if the mouse is held down, we want to construct a bullet. And I think what we want to do is fire the bullet towards wherever the mouse is, relative to wherever the player is. So, we can work out a direction vector at least, simply by subtracting the mouse coordinate, is that right? I want to fire... Yeah, so we want to subtract the mouse coordinate from wherever the player is. And I'll just I'll cast that just to keep the code obvious. Tutors is doing something disruptive in the Discord, I can see already, but I can't click on the link. It's probably the using namespace thing. Do you know what? I'm going to click on that link. Let's have a look. I'm just watching the link. Yeah. Do you have an opinion on Blizzard moving Diablo to mobile? Well, I'll be honest, no, I don't have an opinion on that. I care less about Blizzard, I don't care for mobile gaming, and frankly I find Diablo to be a little underwhelming. So, I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. Sorry if that's like crushed your dreams or something, but I'm really not too fazed by this at all. Although I did read somewhere that it is horribly unpopular, or one of the guys at Blizzard sort of said something along the lines of, you know what, we just want to make lots and lots of money. Yes, Nick, I think that's absolutely right. The player should have a reload time that counts down with the elapsed time, and that's what I think I'm going to do. But you see, now it's funny how my brain works. I classify that as what's called a leaky integrator neuron, only because that's my background, and that's exactly how leaky integrator neurons work. What's this say? It's alright, I don't care about Diablo much, just wonder if you're going to be the start of Blizzard moving away from PC. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's controversial for me to ally myself with whether I'm a PC gamer or a console gamer. Hi, Blue Snow. Hi. Jeremy is the kind of guy that replies to every YouTube comment. Yes. And I'm also getting far less sleep than I used to as well. Right, where are we up to? Let's do some code for at least 30 seconds. So we've got a direction vector for the bullet, and this time, do you know what? I think I actually want to normalize this now. Because the direction vector is not going to change, but I got a feeling if it's normalized, things might be a bit simpler later on. So let's just do that. We'll have is it determinant? Is that the right phrase? I don't know. Square root of dx times dx plus dy times dy. Typed in S there, haven't I? Yep, thought so. Very confusing. And we actually want 1 over that, don't we? Should I do any clever checks to make sure that we're not doing horrible things with not a numbers? No, I'm not. We're just going to hack this together and see how it all comes together. So once I've got a bullet, we can specify the bullet's speed, which I guess will depend on the weapon. The starting location, I'm just going to say, is the player's location to start. Player X and player Y. And the velocity is Vx, is what we've just calculated, dx, times some speed value. Now, whether I might later on include the speed as a separate value as part of bullet, but for now, I'm just going to set it deliberately here. Now, we know 200 is pretty quick, so let's also set the speed that bullets travel to 200. Now, you might be thinking, I'm going to add this to the list, why am I not using things like in place back and constructing the bullet in such a way, using these clever modern C functions? And the reason being is it's a purely visual thing. You know, both methods will probably compile to almost identical code, so I'm not really fussed about it being a performance gain. But what I do like is that I can physically see what I'm doing here. I'm populating a structure in a certain way, and then I'm going to deposit it at the back of a list. So I'll take my list of bullets, and I'm going to push to the back of the list the bullet I've just created. Eldonad, hello! Blue Snow is going alright, thanks. I'm a little bit coughing. In fact, I'm going to cough now. A little bit of a sore throat tonight. So that's the bullet. We're just going to basically add bullets for every frame at the moment, so that's a little bit intense. So as Nick has suggested, I think what we want is a bullet or weapon fire rate cooldown value. So let's have, we'll have fire rate, and we might actually have 2 variables here. We'll have fire rate being 1 hertz, so it'll fire every 1 second, and we'll also have a second variable which is fire rate accumulator. and we'll just set that to 0. So it's going to be the fire rate accumulator that accumulates elapsed time, and when that goes beyond fire rate, that's when we actually create a bullet. So we'll do that here. So if fire rate accumulator is greater than f fire rate, our actual rate, that's when we want to add a bullet. But we need to also then reset the fire rate accumulator. Now you don't just set that back to 0, because there will be some residual value. This will note, this isn't greater than or equals to. I mean, it can be greater than or equals to, but this could be ever so slightly over fire rate. So we need to actually keep that little bit that went over. So I always like to just subtract the fire rate value from the fire rate accumulator in a situation such as this. And that ensures that your fire rate is genuinely what you say it is on the tin. Now, not everybody will get that reference. I know we've set it up there, but I'm just going to do it again. Fire rate is 1 Hz, and fire rate accumulation is 0. Oh, that's not going to work. There we go, that's a bit better. And in on-user update, well, fire rate is always going to happen. So, the trouble is, if the player wants it to feel responsive, that means the first time they click, it should fire, right? So if they do rapidly click, it should keep firing. We'll come back to that in a minute. That seems a little bit more of a complicated dynamic. But do you know what? I'm just going to throw a comment in here for first click, immediate fire. That's just so I don't forget that that might be something I want to do later on. Right. So, I need to accumulate time. Yes. Fire, accumulate, and that's just simply f elapsed time. There we go. Do you know what? Mostly, it will probably fire on the first click. Ah, no, it won't. Hang on, we've got a bit of a logic problem here. I'm going to let you all argue it out in the chat. Right, so the problem I've got here is my fire rate accumulator. The reason I'm sort of hesitating is if this starts off as 0, that's all fine. This will work as normal. But this could be sat here accumulating without the player actually firing anything. At which point this becomes many times more than the fire rate. So when they press the hold down button, for every frame, we're only going to be subtracting the main fire rate. So, instead of subtracting it this time, I think what we want to do is take the modulus of it, don't we? We want the fire rate to be fire rate accumulate equals f mod f fire rate accumulate, comma fire rate. So it doesn't matter now. Only incremented if it is less than fire rate. That's true. What will my method do? Do you know what, Nick? I like you already. Who are you on Discord? I think we'll do that. Yeah, we'll go with Nick's solution. So if f fire rate accumulate is less than or equal to f fire rate, sorry, not equal to, just less than, then accumulate, and we will also put courtesy of CRN Nick. The thing is, I see that name on Discord and I have no idea how to pronounce it. The delay on any... Oh, I thought you said the delay on this stream is huge. The delay on this stream should probably be anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds. It really does depend. I don't think it's a problem at my end. I've had no sort of indication from Twitch that there's any upload issues. I've not dropped any frames or anything like that since I started. So you know, I'm reasonably convinced it's not a setup issue from my end. Right. So we've added bullets to the list. Now we need to draw some bullets. So, well, we'll probably need to update the bullets first. Now, I want to experiment here, because I was discussing with Magetsub on the Discord about, instead of using 4 auto loops all the time, can you do everything with standard transform? And I think maybe it's worth a go. Let's have a go. I'm not that well up with the standard library, just without thinking about it. Certainly not live either. So what is transform here? What have we got as the parameters? Oh dear me, there's loads. I presume there's one which just takes a start out, yes, and then a function. That's the one I'm after, number 12. Okay, so if we do transform list bullets dot begin list bullets dot end, and then what's the last is out iteration is the destination, so that one's list bullets begin again, isn't it? Begin again. Now the next one is the interesting one, because it's going to probably be a lambda function, is that right? Well, we'll take in whatever we've got, and I guess it's going to give me... see, I don't want it to be a const in this case, I just want it to be the bullet object. S-bullet B. It's a messy syntax, this, isn't it? For each is the best option, is it? Bye, Blue Snow. Wolfers. Oh yes, some new folk. Hi, Wolfers. How you doing? Right, so I mean, this could be a disaster. I could have programmed this in its entirety already had I just gone down the normal way. I would have done it, but I just wanted to see for myself how well does it work. So px plus equals vx times f elapsed time. So I think that's it. That's going to update all of the bullets. Do you know what? That was absolutely pointless, wasn't it? It was actually a lot more source just to, just to get this far. The only advantage here is it's kind of a one-liner. Let's just see if it compiles anyway. It doesn't. Doesn't even compile. It's because it expects the bullet going in to be a const. Can't be bothered. Going to go back to the original route then. For auto B list bullets. For auto. There we go. There we are. Much better. Bad Magetsub, maybe, you know, even suggesting that I need to do such a thing. What a rubbish idea. Right, so now we've got the bullets being updated. We'll need to do exactly the same again to draw them, and I'm going to keep them separate for the time being, because I like to keep all of my activity code separate from my drawing code. Just in case I ever want to maybe do all of this in the console game engine or some other platform, it's a bit easier to do so. So I'm going to borrow that again. Draw bullets. Excuse me. And for now, we're just going to draw circles again. We'll fill circle. Fill circle. The bullet location b.px, b.py. What kind of radius should we look for a bullet? Should probably be really small, so we'll just go with 2. And we'll say the bullet should be yellow. Okay. Right. Right now we've got no way of removing bullets, so we're just going to be making this larger and larger and larger each time. But let's just see if we're somewhere in the right ballpark. Curious. Not the result I was expecting. I think the bullets are moving far too fast. So, let's just slow them down a bit so we can understand what it is that I'm doing here. Okay, but it won't let... There we go. So I'm holding down the mouse button. Okay, so it kind of works. But there is a reload time, which is what we wanted. Now to me that looks like there's multiple bullets on the screen. It's moving so fast that I can't even really see what the bullet is doing. Just going to slow that down again. The bullet shouldn't move faster. Because I normalise the dx and dy. At least I don't think that's what I'm seeing. Oh, I am seeing that. Huh. What's going on there then? Oh, I say I'm normalised them. I don't, do I? Right. Okay. That's better. Oh, now it's really slow. Okay, so now we can put the speed back up to something a bit more sensible. There we go. Okay, bullets. Right, can somebody find me a sprite of a top-down shooter of some description? A person, which I can rotate and draw. So instead of drawing a blue circle, we're going to draw an actual agent. So I'm going to just increase the fire rate just to make sure that that's working sensibly. So maybe we want to be able to fire at 10 Hz, so 10 bullets per second. I got that the wrong way around. Yes, sorry, I've got that the wrong way around. 0.1 is what we want there. Right. So we need to get rid of these bullets that are going off the screen. We somehow need to cull them. So I think to do that, we can update the bullets, but we'll call a remove function. Now, is it for lists? Is it built in? I always get confused. Remove if. Yeah, that's the one. Remove from the list of bullets all of the bullets where b.px is less than 0 or b. I need to actually return this, don't I? So if any of these are true, I'm a little bit fastidious about brackets in sort of logic operations, and that's because I once worked with a compiler which did absolutely no sort of operator order. So if px or py is less than 0, then the bullet has gone off either the left or the top of the screen. But it could have gone over the other side of the screen, of course. So px is greater than screen width. Turning into a bit of a monster line, this one. Keep scrolling it along so you guys can see what's happening. Or b.py is greater than screen height. So, we might regret doing this later when we actually want to attack things from a distance, particularly if the whole world map is moving around. So I'll probably think about the bullets expire after going beyond a certain radius from the player. What are we doing here? So that's a return all of that, so that goes there. I don't like putting semicolons inside an argument of a function. Just going to do a quick catch up with some of the chats, so sorry about that. Tad Hart without being able to send links here. If only we had some massive chat mechanism that allowed us to send links. Cult of Rig, morning! Or very evening for us. Snake Rattle and Roll. It was a very difficult game, Snake Rattle and Roll. Right, Magetsub has sent one of his sprites through. Okay, let me pull that one down. Hopefully it's a PNG file. Open link. Save image as... Okay, I'll save that there. So there we go, just been sent an image of a soldier. I will come back to that in a minute. So that function here, list bullets.remove it, is going to remove all of the bullets from the list that are no longer on the screen. So now we can spam bullets all over the place. Very nice. I quite like the movement dynamic. I don't like the fact that the player can move faster than the bullets, so we may have to adjust that too. Now, it's also dawned on me that actually detecting whether the bullets have hit something later on is going to become quite a challenge. Because the bullets are moving very quickly indeed. In fact, I'm going to speed up the bullets a little bit more, and you know what, I might just slow down the player a tad too. Let's slow down the player to 100. We actually want there to be some sort of challenge here. Okay, that feels a bit better. Very nice. Gauntlet was a game for the NES. Well, it was a classic arcade game where 4 people would play on the console itself. It stood at the arcade game. One of you would be a wizard, one of you would be a warrior, one would be a elf, and one would be something like a barbarian or something like that, and or ranger, I think it was. And the 4 of you would just have to hack and slash through hordes and hordes of enemies that kept respawning. Right, I just want to really stress this. I'm going to set the fire rate of the bullets to be 100 Hertz. Nice. Start doing our own bullet hell style game. Hoping that Twitch doesn't start complaining there about the encryption or compression. Somebody pulled me up on calling video encryption compression. I actually sort of think that they're the same thing, but never mind. That would be quite nice in some sort of water simulation, wouldn't it? You've got a water hose. We add some gravity to that. You'd love everything to be more slow and thought out. What? This is pretty slow and very not thought out. That's how these work. Alright, see you, Nick. Thanks for that. Sorry if I've missed you already. Right. Okay, so we've got bullets everywhere. I don't think I will make it a bullet hell game, but let's see if I can get them to mess around. That's quite nice. I quite like that. because there are other dynamics I want to play with. So I want the world to be bigger than the visible screen. Anyway, we've got a silly amount of bullets there. Let's put that back down to something a bit more sensible. Now, Forgetsub has very kindly sent a sprite through called Soldier. So let's load up that sprite. Excuse me. So, OLC sprite star SPR Soldier. And I'll load that in OnUser Create. It was just soldier.png. I don't know what size it was, so we'll have a play with that in a minute. Just to get a feel for is it rendering and doing things right, instead of drawing the player as a circle, I'm just going to draw the player as a sprite instead. But I don't know what size the sprite is. I've not even really looked at it. Draw sprite. Where are we putting it? Well, it's the same parameters, fPlayerX and fPlayerY. It's the whole sprite. I don't want to do any scaling. So we'll just leave that as is for the time being. Save the bullet's previous position and draw lines between current and old. That would look like laser pulses, wouldn't it? Yes, full on ammo. You can only store 10 bullets at a time. Just so it goes. Right, what are we doing here? Why have I got... No, I've completely lost my place where I'm up to in my code. Drawing the sprite. Let's just have a quick look. Can't see any sprite. Why can't I see any sprite? What was it called? I'm just looking off screen to... Oh, I've called it Slider. See? Typo again. Still can't see it. Why not? What is this thing that you've sent me? Do you know what the problem is, don't you? Is I've saved that to the console game engine folder, not the folder I'm actually working in. So let me just copy that over. Simple game engine. Pasting. Try again. Right, there's the sprite. So it's a bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. But that's okay, because in order to rotate the sprite, I'm going to need to do some transformations to it. I'm presuming the white background is actually alpha, and we can also see that the sprite is not quite in the center. So I want to set the central position of the sprite to be... Well, it might look quite cool if it is actually the middle of the sprite. So let me just pull out the dimensions of that sprite so I know what I'm working with. It is, of course it is, for whatever reason, it's 46 by 35 pixels. Yes, that nice round programming number that's always good for graphics. Well, you might have 30 minutes of loading on your machine, Tutus. Right, so what am I doing? I want to now use the graphics extension, which I've already forgotten how to use. So this is going to be quite exciting. Hash include OLC PEGX graphics 2D. There we go. Let's just open up that file and remind myself what were my own commands here. So we have to create the graphics object is GFX2D, and we're going to draw a sprite, but before we draw a sprite we want to create a transform. So we need to create a transform. Let's do that. So we're going to draw the sprite here, but let's create a transform first. So OLC GFX2D transform 2D D. T dot. So the first thing I want to do is offset or translate the sprite by this delightful combination of what was it? Minus 46 and 35. So I want half of that. So we'll offset it by minus 23 by 17.5. Flipping it, we'll get some. Right. Okay, so that's to move the sprite's origin to the middle of the sprite. Effectively, we've moved the sprite around its origin there. So I'll translate like that, and then we're going to finally translate. We'll add some stuff in between. Translate the new location to the world location, which is fPlayer X and fPlayer Y. And instead of using the normal draw sprite routine, we go to GFX 2D draw sprite. And I think that takes in a transform as its last argument. It does. I can remember. Just about. So I'm just going to close a few windows here. Do you like Lisp? Obviously somebody's having a joke there. Why have we got a load of errors here? What's going on? fPlayer X, fPlayer Y. Oh, because of course that makes absolutely no sense. I don't need fPlayer X and fPlayer Y anymore. They're part of the transform. I've not tried the graphics engine, I don't think. Okay, so now the bullets come from the middle. So that's telling me that we have actually positioned the sprite in the right place. I think now we want to rotate rotate the sprite to face the direction of the mouse cursor. Now this might take a little bit of trial and error because I've not got my maths brain on at the moment. So we'll have f face angle being the thing that's sorting all that out. And we'll go and define face angle up here somewhere. F face angle, which I presume right now by default it's looking at 0. But in reality it should be... Oh, I need to put a thing there. Face angle should be... Well, it should be this, right? So... Tell you what, let's take that out of there and let's put this up here because this looks like it's fairly fundamental to everything that we're going to be doing. I'll rename those variables later. dy and dx, and so I'll just take face angle. I'm going to take the arc tangent of dy and dx to just work out what angle it should be. I use the good old atan2f function. In this case dy and dx. I've not normalised it beforehand. Let's just see what happens there. This is usually where things start rotating in the wrong direction and all that good stuff. But there we go. Right, so now the sprite is facing the cursor. Now it's quite nice. You can actually see how the sprite is the sprite area is extended depending on the rotation that you're using. And because the sprite is quite large, it's surviving the rotation without too much degradation. It's quite nice. I think because your sprite is already facing towards 0, if the sprite was stored upright, then yes, you need something like that. Yes, the sprite should shoot from the gun. Yes, we're going to get there. He could be spitting those bullets out, but at least we're not far off now. Okay, the next thing I think is to make the background transparent for when we're drawing the soldier. So set pixel mode. Now, I'm assuming there is an alpha channel to this sprite, and I'm assuming that it's reasonably sensible. And the reason being is I can just specify OLC pixel mask mode, which is much faster than using alpha blending mode. I'm just going to encase that. Normal. Oh, very nice. By the way, this is the music from Gauntlet, I think. Let me just double check that. Why has all my cursors and things disappeared? It is, there we go. This is the music from Gauntlet. Very nice. Quite like the dynamic. Right, I'll turn that back down, don't worry. There we go. Put the final 6 hours theme for Majora's Mask. I do listen to a lot of Zelda at work, so I'm not going to put any Zelda on right now. But we do want the bullets not necessarily to fire from... well, from his face. Let's just get rid of that for a second. So, if we wanted to offset the bullets a little bit to be towards the gun, then we don't want to place them at the player location. Instead, we want to place them at some radius offset from the player location. I'm just going to, whilst I've got this thing here, I've got an opportunity to test something I've not yet really tested, and that is to scale things. T.scale. Not really played with this. So if I scale by 3 and 3. Very nice. Okay. I think it's nice watching a video like this. So it does sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet a little bit, but it just shows you how quickly and simple you can get sort of very simple dynamics up and running with this framework. There is a reason that I stand by the validity of the console game engine and pixel game engine in this case. Let's just try that the other way round. So if I actually wanted to make things smaller, much smaller. And you might think, surely you've tested this, but I've not really tested it with sort of realistic sprites before. Of course, he moves at the same speed, but it looks disproportionate now, so maybe that's something to bear in mind. Okay, we'll get rid of the scale anyway. Do I like Lisp? Do I like Lisp? No. No, I don't. Right, I've completely lost where we're putting bullets. Bullets at the end of the gun. That's what we're doing now, isn't it? So, instead of placing the bullet at the location of the player, we need to offset it a little bit. So that requires that once we've done this bit, we can actually sort of reuse some parts of this, can't we, to do that calculation. So it is b.px will be the cosine of am I getting this right? Hang on, let me get this. Hang on a second. Hang on. Yes, it does actually mean we're sort of thinking about things a little differently. So it's the cosine of the facing angle times whatever the width of our unit is. Now, once it's been translated, it was what, minus 17 or something like that. So I'm just going to sort of suggest it's going to be 20. It's not consistently going to be 20. And it's the sine for y. But face angle has already been calculated reasonably up there, so we could probably should calculate the velocities in a similar way. So this seems a little bit dirty, but hey, I say that's what these streams are all about. They're not like the YouTube videos. Oh, hang on. I've not offset it by the player location. So yes, actually I need to include where the player currently is as the offset. There we go. It's better. Right, so, well, we got lucky with 20 there, didn't we? That seems reasonable. Now, we could probably do... I mean, it looks like he's firing tennis balls at the moment. That's what's keeping this a PG stream. But the motion feels a little bit weird. I think there's some sort of physics that are coming into play that you don't really think about when you're firing guns. Okay, it seems everything's still a little bit large. Now, is that a consequence of the size of the console that I'm creating? So I'm going to create a 512 by 480 and have a play with that. Just to reduce the pixel size a little bit so it all still fits on the screen. That's probably a little bit more acceptable to people. Although I quite like the retro look. Right, so I'm going to go on Google and try and find a bit of a background image. Just looking for something that seems like a sensible size. Suitable scale for what I'm looking for. I can show you what the type of thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for what kind of background image can I put on here. I've got a feeling the scale is going to be a bit tricky because now we've got the guy is so big, so if we put him against a background that doesn't look quite right, it's not going to work very well. So these are too zoomed in, the grass is too big. That one's probably a bit more reasonable. 418 by 418. Now, I won't use these in the final game or any distribution because I'll have to go and subsequently check out all of the licenses that these things use. But just whilst I'm hacking something together, I think it's okay. Right. I don't know, let's just pick. We'll pick something. That one seems reasonable, so we'll go with that to start. It costs credits to do that. Save image as E drive. Work. Oh, it's not work, is it? For some reason I do everything out of Linshare now. Simple game engine. I actually had my tough grass texture already. See, I could load that, but I know that that's really big. Well, let's just go with it anyway. I just want some sort of background. So we'll go with tough grass, since I've already got texture there. I'll just offload that out of the way for a minute. Test PNG should be the background. What was test PNG? Anyway, yes, let's load in the background. Let's get rid of the jam accidental advertisement here. If you've not seen it already, don't forget to sign up for the OLC Code Jam. 21 people in less than 24 hours. I'm really quite impressed with that, so thanks guys. But there's still 10 days to join in before I announce what the theme is going to be. Right, so let's just close that off and we're going to load up some sort of background texture. And for now, the background texture is going to be the same size as the screen. It's all going to be the wrong proportion. I just want something that's a little more interesting than black, to be honest. Let's load that up. SPR background soldier.png. What did we say it was called? I can't remember now. Test toughgrass.jpg. Now, you might be thinking, oh, it doesn't load JPEGs. It does on Windows. Sorry, Linux people. Quite happy to... Yeah, it's loading it. It's loading it. It takes a bit of time to load a JPEG, though, because it's actually a really massive JPEG. It's like 6 by 6,000 pixels, that one. Let's, instead of clearing the screen, we're going to draw just the top left-hand portion of that sprite. So draw partial sprite 0, 0, SPR background, and we're going to... I've lost my arguments. What we're going to do next is, where do we want to take it from? We want to take it from 0, 0, and we only want to do screen width and screen height's worth, or else it'll be really quite slow. What else is there? I don't think there's anything else. The scale, we can keep the scale as it is. So that's what I was saying. The texture that I'm using is the wrong scale for the things that I want to see. But nonetheless, it's very easy to load something. I could run it through a transform using the advanced 2D graphics like we've done with the player anyway. Right, we've now got a background, we've got the player moving around. I want to see, this is a little test video really to try some things out. I just thought it was worth streaming. I think what I'd like to try are sort of strange effects that affect how the player perceives what's going on. Now, some of you will have seen the water-like effect that I've been experimenting with on the Discord server, so I think I'll do something similar. But what I want to do is firstly render everything to a back buffer instead. So instead of rendering to the screen, have a buff back. I can choose to render everything to another sprite, and that then gives me some options with what I do with it. So buff back equals new OCLC sprite. In this case, it's going to be, well, it's going to be the size of our screen, screen width, and screen height. And instead of drawing everything to the screen, I'm going to draw it to that sprite. So I can redirect where all of the draw calls go. And this is why I like to keep them sort of grouped together. So here is where we're doing our first drawing things. So instead of clearing black, first thing we want to do is set the draw target. I don't know why I'm commenting that out. But set draw, is it draw target? Yes, it is draw target. I can set that to be buffer back. So all of these calls are now redirected towards that target. And then I can choose to draw that target to the screen after we've done everything else. So this is it's a bit of an old school way of thinking about things. Draw to screen, I set the draw target to null, which means draw it to the main display, and then choose to draw sprite, the whole thing, 0, 0, back, buffer, come back, back buff, got my own arguments, and we'll keep the scale as just being 1 to 1. So this shouldn't have changed anything. I've done that the wrong way around, haven't I? Buff, back. So that really shouldn't change what we see. And you might think, oh, well, that's a waste of performance and things, and it will certainly take a bit of a performance hit to do that. Yeah, in fact, it's halved it about, and that's because we're running in debug mode. But I'm not too worried about that. For whatever reason, debug and release mode have huge differences with the Pixel game engine. So there we go, 200 frames per second at the moment. And that's now redundantly rendering this back buffer to the screen. But that now gives me some options with things that I can do, and it's a little function that I wanted to show off. So I'm just going to pull up in one of my external code windows. There we go. So I have another little notepad open with bits of ideas and programs that I'm working on, which I keep to myself. And what I'm looking for is that water effect that I've been working on. It's under... Where is it? Oh, again, I'm looking in the console game engine folder. So it's old habits die hard. Slingshare. There we go. So I know it's not very interesting at the moment. I'm just looking off screen specifically for that file. Okay, so this is a little utility I've been working on. No, we've not just suddenly logged into code blocks or anything else like that. What I'm doing is looking at a shader. I'm going to steal a shader, effectively, that I've already made. And which one do I want? Water distortions. Let's try that one for now. Look at my PMs. PMs on Twitch or PMs on... Oh! Well, I'm looking at my PMs on Twitch, and by the way, if anybody did notice, I've just got my path to affiliate. There we go. So, PMs on Discord. Just sorry a sec. Oh, test PNG, right? Okay. Yes, okay. I'm looking at test PNG. I can't actually stream the Discord screen. But it's a picture of me going... sorry, so I was just checking the... yeah, it's quite a nice thing. Good, so that's... I'm pleased with that. Right, before my head gets too big for my own good, where am I up to? I'm going to put in this distortion effect, which I'm literally going to cut and paste from something I've already been using. But I wanted to show that it was quite an interesting way of doing things. And once I've set the back buffer to be the screen, any subsequent operations... Excuse me a second. Any subsequent operations will now draw to the screen. So I'm going to copy pixels from my back buffer and draw them individually to the screen in this case. So I'm going to, looks like I'm accumulating here in the y-axis. So I wanted to see some sort of global distortion effect. We've not got a camera in this case, we can get rid of that. But we do have global time. That's a variable I'm going to need for this to kind of work. Because in games like Hotline Miami, they often sort of shake the screen around and blur things up and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a look. So flef global time equals 0.0, and all we're going to do for global time is accumulate f elapsed time. Every single frame, that's all it's going to be. F global time. If you can hear explosions and things in the background, it's we've got something called Bonfire Night here in the UK. And there's a lot going on in my neighbourhood. Elapsed time. Let's go back to the water distortion. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go through each and every pixel of my fully rendered image. But then I'm going to create a new image, i.e. what I'm drawing to the screen, but I'm going to sample from my existing image in different locations. So let's just see if that even compiles and works to begin with. It looks a bit crazy. It's not kind of working. Doesn't look like water, does it? What are we doing here? Set target port is null pointer. Y plus global time divided by 10 divided by 2. We'll just get rid of... Well, we'll actually make that a bit larger. 100. Yeah, you guys won't even be able to perceive what's going on there. So I'm also going to make that much bigger too. I really don't know. I don't know anything about how the affiliate system works. Ooh, wow, okay, that's a bit trippy. Okay, that's not the effect I was going for. Just need to sort of understand in my own head what's going on here. Why are the pixels being drawn in such a way? We'll just increase the frequency of that distortion. This is all the stuff you could edit out of the YouTube videos, isn't it? We'll put that back. So I'm drawing the pixel. I'm choosing a pixel from my back buffer relative to... Doesn't look like a sine wave. Almost had the effect of atmospheric due to explosion. Go back to that one and have a look at it and just try and understand what's happening here. I don't know why it appears twice. That's what's puzzling me a bit. Must have something not quite right with the sizes of things. Screen width and screen height is going to be 512 by 480. I create my new sprite using those sizes. So I've got my Y position, and I'm offsetting my Y position. I'm just going to take that out for a second. So that should shift the whole image. I think Gauntlet and I were discussing something like this yesterday. Yeah, so that's shifting the whole image. So we want Y to take... I'm hoping it's not sort of casting awkwardly like that. Ooh, crazy. There's a lot of weirdness going on here, which I don't think I fully understand. That's because we've got sort of order of operations issues going on there. Why is it drawing it twice? What's going on here? Because my offset is 200. I mean, that could potentially be something, but I doubt it. You see, that one's most odd. That's not doing the effect at all how I would anticipate it to do it. Y times 0.5 plus global time. Well, that's what this the frequency here is doing. Okay, so we'll actually take the global time just as an increasing constant, and we'll modify that by... Yeah, Y is incrementing by 1 rad. That's why I wanted to divide it by the 100 to sort of bring it down into scale. But okay, let's try it like that. Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. So what have I cut and paste wrong there then? I've got some evidence to suggest that I kind of know what I'm doing, because we was discussing exactly this with Gorbit the other day. Now, I'm in the middle of sort of experimenting with that block of code, so I'm wondering if it's just bad code I've cut and pasted. Anyway, okay, so we get sort of a distorted effect, and it is distorting the player as well. Now, one of the modes I've added, see these white bars appearing, I've actually added now the facility to sample a texture slightly differently too. I just can't remember what the command was. It was set sample mode for a specific texture, so I'm going to do that on the back buffer. So if I set the draw target to the screen and I go back buff, or buff back, set sample mode, OLC sprite periodic. This should allow us then to sample from beyond the boundaries of the sprite. Now this is completely untested, so this I'm not entirely sure if this works. Ah, it doesn't, you see. That was a good thing to test. So that's drawing X, Y, P. That's an odd place for it to crash. Tell you what, let's run that in debug mode and see what it thinks. No, stop. Stop game. There we go. Debug mode. Why are we crapping out here? We've got Y. Oh, Y is -1. Ah, okay, yes, that's a good point actually. I hadn't considered that we might be sampling things with negative values. Okay. Dum. That puts it as -1 times width, doesn't it? So if I actually want that to kind of work, it needs to be... Do you know what? I might just hack that for the time being, because I think it might be okay. I'm just going to stick some abs in there, just to see if we can get beyond it sort of crashing out on the first pixel. Yeah, there we go. It won't be entirely accurate, as you can see a seam at the bottom of the screen there. Okay, but that allows me to do some sort of interesting kind of distorted effects. And that's one of the features I wanted to show. The other feature I wanted to show was doing things like a genuine kind of shader. Instead of here we can see I set the pixel mode when we set the mask and the normal. One of the things I can do now is set the pixel mode to be a custom lambda function, and this is a little bit strange, but I think very useful. So I could probably move the distortions into this as well. So I've got the set pixel mode function, and I'm calling it here, and the arguments that you give are X and Y, the source pixel and the destination pixel, and you choose then how they blend. So when this draw function here is called, it'll actually call this lambda function. So this is set up. This is set up to remove most of the red components. So as I was experimenting with trying to make things look underwater. And you can see it runs appallingly in debug mode because we've got a lot going on now. It's fairly high resolution too. But let me just cram that out into release. So in this effect, it could be almost like a nighttime style shading effect, whilst the guy's on drugs. So very quickly and very easily, we've managed to set up some global spatial transforms, and we can also do temporal transforms too, with the pretty much the same setup. So instead of, let me have a think, how can we do some sort of blurring effects? We want to take the existing back buffer and draw it. Well, we want to kind of accumulate it in, maybe not do an effect today. Well, oh, hang on, I'm sort of missing a few things going on in the chat here. Javid needs to enable cheering. Yes, probably. But that also means I have to start filing tax returns. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, look out. Javid Special Forces is coming for you. Okay. I'm just trying to think what's the simplest path of least resistance to implementing a temporal blur here without getting too carried away with more and more buffers. But I think we do actually have to add one more buffer in order to do that. So we've got our back buffer. I'm going to have... No, the back buffer is the target, and the actual screen we'll use as our accumulated buffer for a temporal rendering setup. I'm just going to take out the water rendering for the time being. And you know what, I will also just take out the water distortions. But what I'll do is I want to draw the buffer from the back, but there's actually some calculations that need to be done first. So actually I do want this, but I don't want it to be watery. Instead I want to say that the pixel that is out is going to be the destination, is the source pixel minus the destination pixel, is that right? I don't think I've not actually got operator overloads for these sort of things, so I have to do them a bit manually. So the pixel going out is the source pixel. So just get rid of these bits of junk. Source R, G and B minus P destination dot R, G and B, and all of that gets stuck into. Let's have a look, check that out. R, G and B times F elapsed time times some factor, some coefficient for how we want things to blur. So we may have to play with some of the numbers here, and that becomes a addition. So what I'm trying to do here is get the... Why is that telling me it's got an error? I don't think there's an error there. There is an error there, it doesn't like that. Can't convert from float to uint8. Oh, okay. That's why I had these floats in place. Now, is this purely accumulative? I'm going to have some sort of leak in here as well. What's going on? Error, error, oh, semicolon. Hey, Dabs. Okay, well that's a bit nuts. It's cool. I mean, it's you know, it's nice in its own way, but not overall the effect that I'm looking for, and that's because I need, in some way, for the source to decay. So I've got the source, which is the newly rendered image. I'm looking at the newly rendered image minus what's currently there, and we're accumulating that on what's currently there. And then I think before I do any of that, I actually need to degrade what's already there. Pout dot R multiplies itself by 0.9, for example. G and B. Float. Yep, this all looks like horrible, horrible code. Source and destination are exchanged. Destination is going to be my cumulative buffer, so in this case if source... that's obviously no good. And that's clearly no good, because that needs to be, yes, that needs to be what's currently already there, yes. Pdes, right, let's just have a look at that. I don't, this is just see what happens, right? Okay, I see. You guys, oh ye of little faith, you always think I don't know what I'm doing, but there we go. Right, so now we've got some sort of temporal blur, but it's clearly offset because of that minus 0.9. we never sort of really get the full output, so we probably need to do some sort of adjustment for that. So, along with our temple blur, let's also add in our water distortions back in, and let's should we also boost sort of what the output is going to look like? We might just need to give these things a little bit more time. I'll give it 10 more time, but I've got a feeling that's going to be far too much. Wow, yep, that's probably going to crash Twitch as well. We'll keep that as it is. You know what, in fact, we might even bring that a bit lower down. I think it was too high. We went the wrong way. Okay, now far too dark, so we need to bring that back up. Now we'll keep that as 1. Is it this one? I think it's this one. So let's put in some more original image. Okay, yes. Now we're talking. So I think we can probably have a lot of fun with sort of power-ups and pick-ups which change the nature of how the player does their thing. Obviously in this case, the guy's on drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. It's a bit too blurred, that one, isn't it? We can't really even see what's going on. In that case, I don't really like increasing these numbers, and I know why I don't like increasing them, but it goes on. So that's increase the brightness a bit, but also reduce the amount of motion blur going on. Right, I think that's all for tonight, guys. Thank you very much. I just wanted to play around with this mechanic. I'm going to work with it a bit more over the rest of the week. I might even stream it, but my intention is to actually turn this into a bit of a silly video. Hopefully a nice short video with some simple dynamics in there as well. So thank you very much, guys, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to register for the jam if you haven't already. And shout out to Magetsub for giving us this sprite. Everybody, take care.